Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Graham the Cracker Man, and I'm back again to tell another story. This time it's going to be of my greatest collection pickup, something that I don't think I'll be able to duplicate again, just in the sheer size and the great deal that I got in this lot. I mentioned it in my introduction video, which I believe 0 people have watched so far, to be expected. But anyways, yeah, so this is my biggest collection pickup I made to date, in sheer size and the deal I got. So to set the story up, I was browsing on Facebook one day for auctions in my home state, and I came across an advertisement from a family-owned auction house up into a larger city to the north of me, and it was titled like Ultimate Sports Card Auction plus extras, something like that, pretty generic. So I clicked on it, and I was flipping through the photos, and sure enough, I came across a picture with some Pokemon product in the background. What it was some of those uncut Burger King sheets, and then I think 3 of those blue binders that you would use as a kid to stick your cards into. It was those blue ones with I believe it's like Blastoise and Charizard on the cover. They're pretty cool. And I thought, man, those would be pretty cool to have in my collection. They were sealed, so I thought that was pretty neat. So I saved that on my calendar, and then a couple weeks later, they uploaded some more photos, and in those photos they had some more Pokemon stuff. They had a picture of a stack of not a stack of cards, but like a tray of cards with some of them spread out, and it was the 1 through 16 first edition basic cards, all shadowless, obviously. And I remember I just started like shaking on the couch. I was like tapping my wife. I'm like, look, and she's like, calm down. I was like, all right, that's it, I'm going. And so the next day I woke up at 5 a.m. and drove up to the auction house, and it was an incredible scene. The whole parking lot outside just had rows and rows of collectible holders and sleeves and binders, just boxes and cases of everything Ultra Pro. It was just an insane amount of product to have at some auction. So I started talking around, and basically what it was a guy who owned a card shop in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and he ended up retiring, and basically he took everything he had and moved it into the back bedrooms of his house and into some storage units. And this guy just had, it was kind of sad to see how much of these like Ultra Pro products he had, because it would be enough to sleeve and binder like hundreds of thousands of cards. It was ridiculous, and they're all pretty old, but still factory sealed, case fresh, if you will. So I started perusing the boxes and stuff, and then in the back they had a separate little unit that was like partitioned off, and it said adults only. And what that section was dozens and dozens of those 5x5 boxes of those like Playboy cards, which was just crazy. He had tens and tens of thousands of these. And then inside they had around the building they had just those picnic tables, fold up tables, just lining the entire perimeter of the building, and they had 5 or 6 rows of just tables lined up, like as far as you could see. It was just ridiculous. It was a whole building filled with cards, and it was primarily sports cards from all different eras. A ton of like the 80s and 90s kind of junk box era cards, but he had also a lot of the vintage cards from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which are really sought after. And one of the box was a semi-complete 1952 top set. It was missing the Mickey Mantle card and a couple of the staples. So by the time we had enough, we basically had like 2 or 3 hours to look through everything before the auction began at 9 o'clock. I got there at 7. So I was looking through all the boxes, and it was mostly sports cards, and then in a glass box towards the end of the line was the case that had the Pokemon product in it. And it wasn't just only those hollows from the first edition base set, but he had 2 800 count boxes of hollow cards, as well as a binder. And so I asked to look through the boxes, and sure enough, it was just an insane amount of vintage hollows. It was everything from like base set up to some gym cards, but nothing beyond that. So that's why I think he must have closed down around like 2000, 2001, because he had nothing from like Neo and beyond. And basically what it was, I was flipping through this box of the English cards, and it was just basically 10 complete sets of base set hollows, so 1 through 16, about 10 copies of each, plus just everything from Fossil, Jungle, and Team Rocket, and then a couple gym cards thrown in there. Not a lot of gym, just a few. And it was just insane. I started sweating just like looking through this. At that point, I hadn't seen anyone look through this box. They were primarily sports guys looking through the sports cards. So I was just praying to myself that no one came over and saw what this was, or that they weren't interested. And then there was another 800 count box of Japanese holo cards, as well as a ton of promos. And those are mostly like base set, Jungle, and Fossil cards. I don't think there's anything from like Team Rocket. No, there was one Team Rocket card, a few Team Rocket cards. But anyways, so I sat there to the end of the day. Finally, the auction ended. I went through all the other stuff. Oh, one more thing. It was not only just like sports and like Pokemon cards, but it was crates and crates and crates full of completely sealed trading cards from everything from like Disney to Star Wars to Marvel. At that point, like Marvel cards weren't worth anything. I remember there's a whole crate of sealed like Batman Topps cards, like the whole set, like 50 completed little box sets of that. And I think the whole thing went for like $30. No one wanted it. I'm sure that's worth a lot more today because people went nuts over the Marvel cards. But anyway, so back to the Pokemon. So finally they got down to the Pokemon. And at that point, there was about 5 people gathered around that was really interested in the Pokemon. And then there was like 10 or 15 sports guys that were just kind of there to watch. And there was one guy in particular that I had talked to throughout the day that was trying to like psych you out. He was like, I've been collecting Pokemon since '99. I know exactly what these are. These are going to go home with me today. Well, he ended up leaving right before the auction started. I don't know why. It was super weird. Perhaps he realized that he wasn't going to be able to get these for like $5. So anyways, so the auction kicked off. The first thing they did was they auctioned off the base set first edition cards one at a time. And the way the auction was set up was if you had a tray of cards you won the first bid on that card, you had your pick, and then you had the option to claim everything. So if there was a tray of 16 cards and you were bidding on one of them and you won that bid at $350, you got first pick and then the option to buy everything else in that tray for $350. Interesting setup. So one of the first cards that was auctioned off was the base set Charizard, and that went up to like $2,200, I think, after fees and everything. And I didn't bid on that. It was just outside of my budget. I went up there to buy $60 in binders, so I wasn't really planning on going home with these high-end items. And the next one that was auctioned up was the first edition Blastoise, and they were stuck in those big 1-inch plastic cases, and so you're really couldn't get a good look on the condition of the card. So I bid on that Blastoise, and I ended up winning it for $450. And this is that card. Once I got it out of the case, when I got back home, it was just super beat up. You can tell that it's kind of sun faded, I think. And then the back of it was super rough. I knew the edges were bad. But what I didn't know was, you can see that crease there. And I was too nervous to try to get off that piece of crud, which I probably should have. But with that creasing, I wasn't even worried about it. The front was pretty to look at. So it came back a 2, and at that point a 2 was selling for like $300. So at that time I would have lost money on this card, but now I think this card sells for a little bit more than that. So who knows? It kind of was a lesson for me that with these cards, I don't mind them in a 2. They're still really nice to look at, and I still enjoy it in my collection. So the next things that were auctioned off after they went through the those high-end single cards, was that box, the 800 count box of the vintage hollows in English. Now it wasn't complete 800 count box. It had basically a toilet paper crunched up roll on one end to kind of hold the cards up. If I remember correctly, there was about 500 cards in that box, ranging from the base set through gym, early gym, and then they had a bunch of the WotC promos, the original Black Star promos. So here are some of the holo cards that I graded from that lot. So we had one of the Charizards came back as 7. I've already sold 2 of these in 7, so this is my last copy of the 7, I think. We'll see here in a second. Then I had a Venusaur come back in as 6. This is my lowest graded Venusaur from that lot. I had another Charizard that came back in 8. I had a Blastoise come back as an 8. And then another Venusaur that came back in 8. Now, when I was going through this, when I got it back home, I basically took everything that I thought I could get a 7 or higher on and sent it off for grading. And then the cards that I thought were lower, I put in lots. I completed like 1 through 16 base set hollow lots, and I sold those on eBay from March to about May of 2020, and I was selling those for around $220 a piece. I think I listed it at $249.99, and I just accepted anything above like 200. So I was letting those go for a decent price back then, but that was about what they were going for. A complete base set was selling for about 300, so it was still a good deal. And so from there, here are some more cards. We had some stuff from base set 2 that came back. This card came back in 8. That hollow pattern really pops. So that came back in 8. I had a Blastoise come back in 8. I had a base set 2 Charizard come back in 9. This is just a really clean copy. I didn't think anything could come back at 10. These were all sleeved in those boxes, but some of the corners, a little bit of a lag there. Some of the corners were a little dinged up. Here's another. Oh yeah, so here is a base set. Oh no, I forgot. No, it's not. So there's 2 base set PSA 8s, and then there's also some foreign cards in there. They had some German, and they had some German cards and some French cards, and I think a couple Italian. So here's a Turtok, a German first edition Blastoise, came back in 8. Pretty cool copy. So let's see what else. So here are some. We'll go through some other. So here are some of the Japanese cards that came back from that lot. So to be upfront with everyone, I paid a $1,150 on the auction, and I won. And then there's a buyer's premium. There was a buyer's premium and tax we had to pay, so it came out to more than that. But still, as you can see from these cards, it was well worth the risk. And so yeah, here's a PSA 10 Japanese Dark Charizard, beautiful card. And then we had a base set Japanese Blastoise come back into 10. I was so excited to get this card back. I wish I filmed that live because I went nuts when I saw the grades. I used Luckin's Collectibles to do my grading, so I didn't know what the grades were before I got them back. Then we had some Team Rocket cards, some more Team Rocket in English. Here's a Dark Raichu, came back a mint 9. And then here's some more big hitters. I had several other German cards. Actually, I have a picture of what they were. I showed them in my intro video, but I'll pop those pictures back up of all the cards laid out. It's a pretty awesome picture. So here's a new mint 8 Glurak first edition. I had 2 of these. I sold the other 8 a few months ago for a decent price. I think I took a best offer on eBay for $3,000 for this card, which obviously paid for everything and then some. I made out really well in this lot. It was pretty exciting. This is the biggest purchase I made up to that date, and I used all the profits from grading these cards and selling them, and just dumped it right back into my collection and made several more big collection pickups over the past year and a half. A little over a year now, and we'll make some videos on those too. So here, there's a Glurak, and then here is a French first edition Charizard, came back in 8 as well. This card goes for quite a bit more than the Glurak. There's just fewer of these in the population. I'm just assuming the print runs of the French first edition were less than the German. I don't think anyone really knows that, but based on the pop reports, you kind of can glean that. And then here is a base set 9, base set Charizard, came back in 9. From that lot, I graded 2 of these, and I sold one, I think back in like February. I had these in my possession back in October when the prices just went crazy, and I sold a lot of the lower grades at that point. In my mind, I wanted to keep everything mint or better for my personal collection and just to keep for down the road. Hindsight 2020, it was a great lesson for me. When this card hit like $4,000, I was still I'm holding. And I had 2 of them. I should have sold one because it made me realize I didn't value this card at that price point. I valued it probably at half that, so I should have sold. But it's hard as a, this is some of the first cards I graded. I was sentimental to them. Everything was going up forever, so was going up that entire year. So you just couldn't, being so new in the hobby, I didn't really have a good understanding of the previous price history. So once these prices started coming back down, I spent the last like 3-4 months really diving into price history. There's some great YouTubers out there that provide a lot of information for free, that talk about this price history and how important it is when you're looking at these cards and paying these like new record prices, that you understand what they were in the past, which will give you a better idea of what type of cards might see that retrace. So that was another copy, and then I had to complete the PSA 9 trio set. I had these cards come back in a 9 as well. Out of the whole first lot I sent off to PSA, I think I sent off like 75 cards, and I have about 35 in my personal collection that will stay with me forever until I no longer like Pokemon, which I don't know when that will be, because I'm pretty hooked on it. I've been hooked on it for 1.5 years now, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So in that lot of the junk cards, I had quite a few of these no symbol cards, which is I think probably my favorite era card from those first 3-4 sets. So I had a Vaporeon come back. I had a Vaporeon come back in 8. I had a Jolteon come back in 8. I had an Electrode come back a 9. I had a Kangaskhan come back a 9, and then I had a Scyther come back a 9. And these are all pretty clean, pretty good examples of what a 9 should be. None of these cards, in my opinion, should have come back any higher. I was hoping that this. Let me pull it back out. Where'd it go? I was hoping that one of these copies would come back at 9. There was one. The one I sold was in a little bit worse condition as an 8, so I was hoping this one would sneak out as a 9, but it didn't. It has some centering issues. But the hollow is really clean, and then the back was also pretty clean. So yeah, that is my biggest collection pickup to date, that I just got for a crazy good deal. At that time, when I was running through the numbers, I knew that if I got that box for under $1,300-1,500, that I could sell what I wanted and keep the rest of my collection. I just had no idea that the market would explode the way it did. When I bought this, it was before COVID was really a thing. There was whispers of it coming from China and overseas, but there was, at that point, I don't think any confirmed cases in the States. No mask mandates, anything like that. So when I bought this, it was really before the spike hit, and it was just a crazy lucky event. I had been looking for auctions for a while before I found this one, so it just goes to show you got to keep your eye out there and be patient. I don't think I'll ever be able to duplicate this type of pickup again in my life, because I was able to turn this initial $1,500 lot, and I've sold from that lot about $17,000 of cards, and then I've kept all these for my personal collection, and all that profit went right back into my collecting, picking up, trying to complete my collection goals, which I'm almost done with my original collection goals, which were a complete PSA 9 set of first edition Jungle, Fossil, Team Rocket, and the Gym Challenge sets. I think I'll be able to finish that this year. I have a lot more coming back from PSA from this initial collection pickup from Jungle and Fossil that I think I'll be able to complete my goal with those. If not, sell a few extras to complete that. So yeah, just thanks for sticking around. This was a crazy pickup. I hope you enjoyed the story and kind of reliving this with me. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you.